Everyone. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hi, Loa. Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, I said I can hear you. I didn't get a response. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but I didn't hear anything before.
Okay. There must be
It's a
some
little
delay.
bit slow starting up, I think. I don't know why.
Exactly. Right. But I can hear you well now.
Okay, good.
Once it starts rolling, it's okay. Yeah.
So, Tarek,
Yes, I can hear you.
okay. I know that Nick is in Vietnam. There is a which one of them? One of the RIPE, no, not RIPE. I don't know which organization it was, but in one of the internet registers had a meeting there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we have 10 attendees at the moment, but I'm expecting more to join maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're 6 minutes after.
I'm just checking one more, see if I get the response. But otherwise, I think we're ready to go. We are 11 now.
Okay. All right, let's progress. Let's proceed, I guess, then. Welcome everyone who's attending to this interim. This is a part of a set of series of interims we've been having on MPLS network actions. It's the usual collaboration between the 3 different working groups. This is the note well. I'm presenting it to make sure that everyone is aware about rules of contributing to IETF. Some useful links you might find on this slide, including the action items we're recording and tracking for these interims. I've added that on one of the bullets there. The rest is good pointers for different material. Today's agenda is short. We will review the action items that we are tracking, and then we'll move on to present an update on draft MPLS M&A header, and that will be by Rakesh and Jag. And lastly, we have any other business as usual. And this is the time to... Oh, I have someone. Okay, Tony, go ahead.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would like to request a change in the agenda. There has been a momentous event, and we should not let it pass unnoticed. We should spend some time to wish Mr. Stuart Brent a happy birthday.
Aha.
I was in anticipation for, but nevertheless, happy birthday, Stuart.
I'm not going to sing happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Are you younger or older than I am?
Age-wise?
Yeah.
In physical years, I'm 71.
Oh, yeah, but then I'm older than you are.
Anything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we could throw a party but let's defer that till we meet face to face. And then I can move on to the action items that we have. Hopefully we can update them. We have something to update. Let me log in so that, oh, it's asking me to log in. So one moment. Oops. Sorry, it'll be up in a minute. Okay, so we have two action items that I have and that I'm tracking. The first is a potential meeting between Tony and Matthew to discuss the progress on the requirements and framework draft. Any outstanding comments? Do we have any update on that meeting, if it ever happened?
That meeting did happen, and we did have a discussion, and I think all of the changes are already in the framework draft as of the latest version.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, we had the meeting, and I think it's all looking good.
So we can go ahead and close the action item?
Yeah, I'm going to record the update and then we can talk about closing it. So you meant we have two drafts, in fact, so the requirements and the framework, and the changes were made in both?
The changes that I think we discussed were all in the framework draft.
Yeah. Yeah, we weren't addressing changes to the requirements. It was just some things that came up during the routing area directorate review of the requirements draft that probably impacted the framework.
Okay. I can move this action item to closed now unless someone objects. All right. The next action item we have is, in fact, on the agenda. There were some suggested texts. Joel and others have contributed to it. And I think Jags and Rakesh have an update for us. So depending on how discussions today go, I might update this and scrub it and as well may close it if everything is sorted out. So that was the last action item I have on record. I'm happy to track another one if anyone has one now, or as we progress on the call. Okay, just saved update. It should be visible if anybody's looking at it. And I don't see anyone in the queue. So we can move on to the next item on the agenda. And with this, I will switch to the slides. And I'm not sure, is it Rakesh or Jag will be doing the flipping of slides so that I can give you the privilege.
I'll be doing it, Tarek.
Okay, so I'll give you a slide control. I think you should have it now.
Okay. Let me check. Yeah, I have a control. Thanks. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. We got a few comments from the working group and then from our co-authors. So here actually I'm going to present the updates of those comments. And and how did we address in our newly published draft. Yeah, so the overall actually, like, we took all the comments and then we tried to accommodate and see valid and then validity, and then we added to our draft. So this is our agenda. So these are the main comments we got it from the working group and our co-authors. So the first one is the like how to handle the label stack push, or HPH MNA network action push by a mid node on a received packet with HPH MNA substack. And next one is I'll go in detail one by one. I'll just flash this one first. And then like we have some editorial comments we got, and then we have updated it. And the next one is the pending. There is one pending comment, like probably we can talk today and then we can address it. And the final is the next step. So let me go into the first comment, what we addressed it. So thanks Joe and others, like help us in putting together the words and sentences together and then form a very, very good way of presenting how what to do when we receive a packet with the HPH MNA substack, and if the mid node wants to add any additional HPH MNA network action. So this is the text we added to our new draft. So I'll just explain, like what that mean. So like if you say like I receive a packet on the left hand side, right, and then if you want to add additional labels on top of it. So the idea is that like we want to duplicate the HPH MNA depending on the RLD on the downstream path, so that the downstream nodes could have access to the HPH MNA substack. So this is one of the example. Another example is like if you want to add an additional MNA that is MNA position, which is HPH, then actually like we need to take the existing MNA opcodes and then append the new opcode which has been which the mid node is going to impose on. So these are the two examples which we covered in 7.1. I'll go to the next. Any questions? Okay, I'll move to the next one. So then there was some discussion about like this RBIT. So in this document, actually, we say that this must be transmitted as 0 and ignored upon receipt. But in one of our post-doc PSD draft, we are trying to reuse this RBIT. So there was discussion like how to word this specific RBIT and reserve bit. So any questions or anything on this one? Okay, I will leave it as this, and then yeah, any question?
Yes, Jack. One question. So the reserved bits are 3, right?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think
4, 5, 4. So what about? Oh, okay. So you're setting. Okay, so you're basically saying that you're setting them to 0. They must be 0.
Right.
And in case we want to use one of them in the future, we'll have to update this this RC. Becomes so. Okay.
Correct. Okay. I'll
Thank
move to the
you.
next one. Okay. No problem. Okay, so next one is the then actually we had some discussion about the readable label depth definition, and then we agreed upon to use the RLD instead of maximum label stack depth. And then, so this is the bold, whatever the bold is there. So that is a new text we added to describe the RLD information. Any questions on this one? Okay, I'll move to the next one. Okay, so this is also a nice comment given by Greg. Yeah, we also agree that we need to add something with respect to the maximum sit depth like RLD, and then we added in the section 9.1. Yeah, any questions on this one? Okay. Yes, Tony. Yeah, Tony, you can talk. Any questions, Tony?
Trying. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Okay, sorry, Meet Echo is failing to turn on. Why is this described in terms of MSD and not RLD?
The MSD is the imposition case, right? The RLD in the mid nodes, actually, like we were talking about. In the previous section, we talked about the mid nodes imposition, and this is actually like here actually the head node imposition case.
Okay, I don't get it, but okay.
Architecturally, we're dealing with it in those terms, aren't we? Sorry, did I trample on someone?
Rakesh, you can talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's a bit RLD and MSD both we need to respect, but MSD is used quite a bit in path computation. So the comment was, what does it mean for the MSD when the path is computed? So if there is a limit, and we know we're going to add MNS substack of 4 LSCs or something like that, then path computation probably should know that it cannot, if the limit is 10 and this substack is 4, then path computation can only go up to 6 LSCs and things like that. So there's already this existing term and limitation. So Greg's comment was to say, what does it mean? So this is the text for it.
Okay, shall I move to the next one if you don't have any questions?
Confused about this. So you have to worry about the maximum number a node can impose, which is what this is about, but you also have to worry about the stack depth that something is going to be able to read later on, don't you?
Yeah.
So I can't. I haven't read this yet. This for a while. I certainly haven't read this new text, but I am worried that we have two concepts and we need to run both of them in order to make sure that everything works.
So this is for the path computation, right? Like whether we can impose on the head end or not. That's a head end capability, right? The other one is the whether the mid nodes can read it. This is the push, and then that's another one is a read.
Right, and you need to make sure that you don't push so many that the read doesn't work.
Yeah, both is needed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Tarak, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm waiting a little bit.
Yeah,
You can hear me? Okay. So normally this MSD is passed to the computation engine as you're highlighting, so that, you know, a path with so many segments can be considered, you know, imposable on the packet or not. If we're going to encode some M&A LSEs, are you going to decrement? So let's say the ingress can push 5 labels, but you want 2 labels for M&A. Then the MSD will be modified. So whatever
the
you
MSD,
give, yeah.
the MSD will be used to determine whether I can add the M&A stack or not to the existing set.
That's okay. That is, I'm thinking about it differently. So what I'm thinking is you will add the M&A and then decrement the MSD so that the computation, you know. So which one happens first, I guess? The computation of the path or the addition of M&A? That is what I'm thinking.
That depends on the local policy, but when we compute the computation, right? So we get the MSD, right? So the
If you did
MSD
the
is
computation first, yes. If you did the
yes,
computation first, then you
correct.
will have the number of
Option.
segments and the MSD, right?
Yes, correct. So if you say once we get the number of SIDs we need to impose, then actually like decrementing the actual path computed and then see like how much um, uh, spare SIDs you can impose with using our M&A substack.
Okay, I think I'll take it offline, sure.
Yeah, Rakesh.
So, Tarek, I think the draft just says that MSD needs to include the M&A substacks, right? So, now how it is done is a local thing. Maybe there is additional wording needed, but it just means that if it's 10 and MSD is 4, then now path competition can only go up to 6. But here
So
it just says
Rakesh,
need.
yeah, that's exactly the point that I was. The MSD is negotiated. Let's say you're talking with a PCE. That MSD you provide from the ingress as a static value. You say, I can push 10 labels. But then there are some packets that have M&A, some packets don't have M&A, or one tunnel has M&A, another tunnel doesn't have M&A. How do we deal with this, I guess?
Yeah, so it just needs to include the M&A substack basically. So if it's 10, then and M&A is 4, then it needs to 10 includes 4.
So MSD becomes 6.
Then MSD, the real
No,
transport.
No, MSD is constant actually.
Well, MSD is about segment depth, not about label imposition. So let's be
labels,
specific.
but labels are segments for this purpose. Sorry, I know
Yeah,
I'm behind in the queue, but this is very straightforward. If I may, Rakesh,
Yeah, please.
you have the path computation thing, whatever it is, gets the MSD. It then computes a label stack it's going to send. That label stack includes M&A things or doesn't include M&A things. It doesn't matter. It must comply with the MSD for the thing to which it is sending it. That has to include all of the entries in the label stack. The fact that we call it segments in one case and labels in one case is absolutely irrelevant. The meaning is very, very clear and very simple. In fact, the only thing that should be said in path computation about MSD is path computation entities should continue to comply with MSD restrictions. There is
Yep.
nothing different about M&A entries. They're part of the label stack. And MSD, even if it says segments, is about how many label stack entries can you push. That's what it is.
Yeah, I think we are saying the same thing, but does the text reflect, Joel, what you just mentioned?
Yes,
Or
I
it
think it
contradicts?
does. I think the text
Okay.
here is fine. It belongs in a section on path computation engines, not encapsulating node responsibilities, but the text is fine
Yeah.
in that regard. The
Okay.
RLD
Okay.
issue is a separate issue that should also be mentioned, as somebody else said.
Yes. So the section 7, Stewart, that mentions the RLD, and this one mentions MSD. I wonder if there is some refactoring needs to be done, but okay, I think we are on the same page. Thanks.
Yeah, Loa, you can go ahead. We couldn't hear you, Loa.
You can hear me now.
Yes, you could.
So between Rakesh and Joel, I think I agree with what they said. The way I think of it is that RLD is a property for a node, and when you set up an LSP, you have to check that the number of labels that you want to push actually fits within the RLD for each and every node on the LSP. And then we need to say the same thing for the maximum SID depth, and I think we did. So I think we're okay. Thank you.
So I think encapsulating node responsibilities really needs to refer to both, doesn't it? Because it's your responsibility as the encapsulating node to make sure you don't push more than you can actually push, and that everything that needs to be accessible at every point is accessible at every point. So it's not just MSD you worry about there; it's presumably both of them.
That's right.
So presumably the text will reflect this.
Is there in section 7, Stewart?
Yeah.
So I think they are split into two different sections, and maybe we need to put them together or do something else.
You certainly need to at least reference it, because
Yeah.
it is definitely an encapsulating node's responsibility to comply with both of these network constraints.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Good.
can refer the section here to say that it should be complying with both MSD and RLD. Tarak, you can go ahead now.
Okay. So back to the negotiating the capability of ingress with the computation engine. So today we pass this maximum segment depth to the computation engine. Are we going to pass a new attribute called MNA substack size? Because that substack size is a variable, depending on the features you're going to carry or enable to the computation engine. So that's question number one. I'm not sure of the last statement there that says the MSD needs to include the MNA substack to be added. I'm not sure why maximum segments need to include something else. Maybe it's just parsing it. I'm finding it hard.
Yeah, the maximum SID depth is a total nodes capability, so it should be both whatever SID path
You mean
computation is posing and the MNA substack too.
the maximum segment depth is the maximum I can push, right? A maximum number of segments I can push. Why is it related to the MNA substack size?
Because there is a node's capability, right? Like how much a node can push. If a node cannot push the MNA substack, information, then
Yes,
we
that's
should.
what I said. You can decrement, if you have M&A substack, you can decrement the MSD. So let's say you had, without M&A, you had 10, MSD is 10. And let's say M&A substack is 4. When you enable that M&A substack, then MSD will be 6. But then Joel made a comment, and I'm still not, I'm confused about it.
So may I reply, Tarek?
Yeah.
From your last question, I think I figured out where the disconnect is. The assumption I am making is that when a path computation entity, either in the head-end node or separate, it doesn't matter, computes a label stack to be imposed, it includes the M&A substack in that. Therefore, it knows how big that M&A substack is and makes sure that the total stack it's delivering, which includes the M&A substack, meets the MSD requirement. If you instead assume that the path computation engine is going to deliver a path and then the head end is going to separately decide, oh, I want to add some actions to it, life gets really complicated because, as you say, substack compliance becomes impossible. MSD compliance becomes almost impossible because you need a piece of information you're going to compute after getting the path that you must have in order to compute the path. Well, you can't do that. It doesn't work, Tarek. That's why I said the PCE is computing the stack. It computes the whole stack to be imposed. That's what it does. That's going to include any actions. When it includes the actions, it makes sure it meets the MSD as well as the RLD restrictions of the path. Yes, that assumes that the PCE, whether it's in the head-end node or separate, knows the RLD as well somehow. It has to, otherwise it can't compute the stack it's creating. If you try to do this in any other order, you're going to produce a mess because the MSD becomes variable based on an unknown quantity, and that just doesn't work. Go ahead, Stuart.
So can I try to clarify, Joel? Sorry, I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Go on, go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay. I meant, to me, it's simple. I mean, with normally MSD is 10, but I want to set aside 4 labels for M&A. So I will just modify the MSD to be 6.
Why would you? But as a head end, you don't know which actions you're going to put on which paths. You don't set aside 4 labels for M&A as a head end because you're not putting M&A on every node, on every
Not on every
stack
node,
you
on
submit.
every path. It's on per path, on per tunnel. You can pass, specific.
But that's, if you know it per path, you can make, then the PCE can know it.
No, I mean not per path. I mean before computing the path, on path request, yeah.
Well, that would be a big change to PCE because.
No. Today I can pull it up. You can pass a limitation on number of segments per path request.
So the fundamental disconnect here is who is responsible for deciding that an M&A substack should be put in this label stack that's being computed. I had assumed that the PCE was responsible for it because, well, it knows what it's computing and what one might want to do, and it knows all the policies. I mean, it's the policy engine. It knows what the policies are. You're assuming that the head end will want to insert M&As after the PCE does its job based just on knowing the path. Well, frankly, that doesn't match any deployment model I can understand.
No. I
think
you misunderstood what I'm asking, Joel. I am with you that you compute the path after knowing that I want to insert M&A.
Right.
Not you compute. Yeah. So maybe
don't you? I mean, there are operational cases where you might want to put MNA in or not put the MNA in, depending on what you're trying to do. So you might want the path with and without the MNA there, and you don't want to keep computing paths, surely. But I think what that means is that a model is that the head end reserves the right to put in a certain number of labels for its operational purposes, and it lies about what the MSD capability is so that the PCE stays within its constraint. But I think all of this, we really need to be sort of out of the weeds of how various implementers have implemented various different flavors of PCE and describe this in architectural terms, don't we?
Fair enough, Stuart. Yeah, if it is true that a head end could lie, and then the things would happen and it could do what it wanted, and it is true that that you could get some pretty strange results if both the PCE and the head end are trying to add MNAs, but so be it.
Well, I think we need some agreement about how this works, or at least the two entities in a particular instance need an agreement about how it works.
Well, I'm not sure they do even.
Well, I mean, you could have I suppose, a parameter that goes between them that says whether the head end has the right to put MNA in.
Well, in fact, from what you said before, there's nothing the PCE can do to stop the head end from doing so, and
Right.
there's nothing the head end can do to stop the PCE from doing so. And if they both do so, they both do so.
Right,
And
and they
as
may
long
do
as
it so with
everybody
different
sends the
scopes.
right values, it just works.
Indeed. I use the term lying. I mean, it's really a question of allocation, isn't it? The physical hardware can allocate a certain fraction of its MSD to the PCE.
And the normal case I would expect would be that it allocates all of it, but we don't have to mandate that.
Indeed.
So normal can be what different implementers want.
Indeed.
Stephen and Joel, I have a generic question. Like in today's world, right? So who is going to insert the entropy labels? Is it the PCE or the local device?
I don't know what current nodes do. I had always assumed the PCE did, because otherwise you get a mess.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to be the same as that one. That's what I'm trying to come, right?
Yeah,
So
but I agree. But EL is inserted by the ingress. But I don't think today we pass it to the PCE as okay. We need to double check that. There is no indication that I'm enabling ELI. So it might be a miss. We need
so
to.
If the head ends are adding ELI, how does that currently interact with MSD for PCEs?
Right. I'm thinking it's not somehow passed to PCE. We need to double check that.
We should check.
We should check. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So can we move to the next one now? Okay, I'll move to the next one. Okay, so there was a comment, like in our 7.1, right? We have said that the new network action added must not conflict with the network action in the received NAS or NAS with the HPH scoping, right? So the question was like, how does a node find the conflict? So actually, our thought was that now, like this will be specific to network action definition. So yeah, we can talk on this one. So any clarification someone can give, or
there is a small, sorry, should raise my hand first.
yeah,
There is a small problem here. As written, you've left open the case of, well, what if the pushing node doesn't understand some action, but I believe that the assumption is that no node will ever be pushing an action that it doesn't understand, and therefore there can never be a conflict of that type. You might want to add just a sentence to spell that out so people understand there isn't a gap.
Okay, so we can say that the node which is pushing any M&A substack should know about the network actions that is pushed.
Well, the thing is, what it should know about is the network actions it is pushing. It doesn't have a conflict with unknown network actions.
Okay.
Because resolving the conflict of unknown network actions in accordance with the behavior of the action would be impossible. But fortunately, the only conflicts are with actions it is pushing. Now, if we define two actions to conflict, we've made a mess for ourselves. And we deserve what we get.
Yeah, so when you say conflict, right, action 1 and action 2, so the conflict should be defined in the specific network action definition, right, when they come up with.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, Lo, you can go ahead.
To me?
Yeah.
I think I'm still confused about the. I think I got what we're trying to do, but the text. Joel, can you help us with the text and see that we get the text that is correct? It should not be much text, just a sentence or so. But Joel,
Yeah, I was waiting for the microphone to turn on. I will be happy to off list correspond with the authors to see about minor cleanups to the text to make sure it's right. They've got the right goal. We'll clean up the text.
okay, thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, Rakesh.
June, maybe I didn't understand because the text says that M&A capable node must understand the received network actions. Are you saying it also must understand the network actions it's pushing and it's not pushing unknown network actions?
So that's part of what I'm going to reword with Jags and company. It doesn't actually matter if it understands the received network actions. What matters is if there is a conflict between an action it is pushing and a received network action, and it must understand the network actions it is pushing enough to resolve such conflicts.
Okay.
That seems to be a necessary condition if we're going to leave it to the node that's pushing.
Okay.
But it's
I don't really
mean,
like it. I just don't know any better answer.
yeah, it's just that it will depend on the network action itself. And every time we define a network action, I think maybe that's what Jack said, that maybe it should say that this network cannot coexist with that network action and things like that, because then it would conflict.
If we
But it's
have, well, we can run into trouble if we start having actions which are different but mutually exclusive, because then we literally would be requiring something to understand, requiring a pushing node to understand something it doesn't understand. And that is not achievable.
yeah.
I don't like to ask nodes to do the impossible.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But that's I'll work with the guys on getting this text a little clearer so that we know what we're dealing with. And the corollary, Rakesh, is that if there are two actions which conflict, we need to specify what happens if both are present in the stack, rather than specifying that they must not be both present. And that seems to be pretty easy to do. If somebody understands only one of them, they do the one they understand. If somebody understands both of them, they do what the draft says they should do.
Yep.
And that doesn't end up in this document at all.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, Huawei, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Yeah. So I'm also confused. Could be a potential confliction? Could you provide a solid example for that? Because I can see what's the real issue we are concerned about here.
So, simple example, and by no means the only possible one. A node is planning to push an M&A substack with some IOAM on it for tracing, just maybe tracing the fast reroute path. Meanwhile, it receives a substack and it's using direct export, and it says to direct export some set of information to node A. Meanwhile, the stack it receives has a IOAM direct export saying export some different set of things to node B. Does it do both? Does it do one? Does it do the other? We need, obviously, in the IOAM case, I think I know what the right answer is. But there may be other parameters where the right answer isn't do both. So it's the common conflict is going to be the same action occurring in the push substack and in the received packet. There may be other cases, but that's the common case. And we need to say resolving that has to be done, and it is done by the node which is pushing these. And it seems reasonable to say, hey, if you're pushing something that is identical to something on the stack, then identical action, then you understand it enough to figure out how to resolve that.
Yeah. I'm not sure I fully understand that, but could you or anybody else actually write it down to write some text about it to describe this case, and we can better understand it.
Given there are very few defined actions, it is very hard to write down what example conflict cases are beyond the example I just gave you.
Yeah, or could be
that happens to be a
maybe.
simple case. It happens that in that particular case, the likely resolution is just do both. But we can't just assume that for all actions.
Yeah, I'm just worried about if we don't really have a real case for this, and maybe we are talking about something doesn't exist here. So we must fully understand this is a common requirement, and we should solve it, right?
The problem is when we get the case, we need existing nodes to do the right thing. They need to be told what they're going to have to do. I agree we could just write that for IOAM you do both in the IOAM draft, but this is a general problem. If you find two things, what do you do? And if there are nodes which you shouldn't have, if there are actions where you shouldn't have two conflicting actions, and the node knows both of them, it should sort it out.
Yeah, but for IOM, it's just a passive measurement protocol, right? It's just a collect whatever it's seen on the forwarding path. So I don't see why it will conflict with anything else. If you
have two of them,
paths,
you have a conflict.
You just collect the data from new paths. That's a aim of the IOM.
That's because you're assuming the resolution of the conflict. And it happens that case, I have a pretty good guess, and I agree with you as to what the likely resolution is. But A, we're not requiring that. And B, we don't think that's the only possible case.
So that's why I'm confused. I'd like to see a solid example. I still can't see that. So that's make me feeling why we concerned about this at all if we don't have a real example for that even.
I asked to put it in specifically because I considered it underspecified if we didn't cover it. I'm having arguments in another working group with folks who have an unspecified behavior because, as a general rule, unspecified behaviors lead to interoperability failures.
How like I was thinking now, like some example, like if you say I want to impose an opcode A, okay, and then if already my HBS stack has opcode A, then actually like we don't want to do a double encode, right? So that could be one of the example I could think of in the common way.
Excuse me, I didn't hear clearly. Can you say again? What's
No,
your?
what I'm saying is that if you say that mid node wants to impose add an opcode some X number, okay, so but my receive packet has the HBH option with the same opcode X, then I don't need to do like additional encode of my opcode X. So just use the same one which is already there encoded, right? So that is the conflict. That could be one of the example for the conflict.
You mean some node want to add the same action to the stack?
Yeah. I'm just thinking aloud, like that could be one of the conflict which Joel was pointing out.
So yeah, I want to ask Joe if this is something you consider as a conflict.
That is a more general description of the kind of conflict I was talking about. Yes. And the question of should you be required to put in the new one and keep the old? Should you keep the old and not bother with the new? Should you keep both? That's going to depend on the particular action and possibly on local policy. And we don't need to specify it as long as the node recognizes it and deals with it. Ignoring it is bad.
All right, that I think that's a case I can buy. But other than that, for two different actions, how they will conflict with each other, I can see still.
I'm not. That's not my primary concern, and that we haven't run into. And I'm going to work with guys to try to just leave us enough wiggle room that we can deal with that later.
Right.
Loa, you can go ahead now.
Okay. I think I have a problem with the word conflict, but because if you say that you have three different parameters, A, B, and C, and you have one instruction saying send A and B to one node and B and C to the others, that's not the conflict, is it? It's just something that just works. And that's the very first example. I can't construe the conflict out of
that. So, Loa, you're saying that a node is sending an A and B opcode?
No, Joel talked about direct export, sending different from a common set of parameters, sending two different subsets to two different the two different nodes, but that shouldn't be a problem. Should it? Joel, are you?
Joel,
Okay.
Loa wants to answer this question regarding the IOM example which you told. Joel, could you hear us?
Obviously not. Okay, we
Yeah.
take it offline.
Yeah, sure. Sure. So for this one, actually, Joel is going to give some updated text.
Well, that's not what he said. He said he was going to work with you to actually
Yeah.
get the updated
Yeah.
text. Yeah.
Correct.
Exactly.
Joel, did you hear my question?
No, unfortunately, I got a call from my car mechanic who was just telling me they fixed the
Okay.
car.
Yeah, I heard the playing. No, I was asking on the first example you had. You said you were using direct export to send one of a common set of parameters, sending a subset of the parameters to one management node and another subset, but overlapping to another node. But I don't construe that as a conflict. It would work.
In the abstract, it is a conflict since it will look like the same action. The actual correct resolution is probably, in that particular case, do both. And the IOAM draft should say that. And it will be so the natural thing will happen in that case. But it was the only one I could think of as an example of getting two things in the same,
But
pushing the same action that was already in. That's all. I think
so
thinking of it
you're saying
generically is better.
it's a conflict because it looks like it's the same action.
Yeah. And therefore, the
Oh,
action definition tells you what you do about it.
okay, got it.
That's what I was saying. Yes. But I will not be that specific in the wording that I work out with JAGs.
We have G in the queue.
Yeah, G, go ahead, G.
Hi,
We
can you
couldn't
hear me?
hear. Yeah, now we can hear you.
Okay. Actually, I sent one question to the chat window. It is not about the conflict, but more about the size of the NAS. Because when a node, a transit node, adds some additional actions to the NAS, the size may increase to some extent that maybe exceed the RLD of some downstream nodes. And how to deal with that situation? Do we need to consider to describe it in the document?
Okay. So you're saying that in the case of RLD is exceeding the imposition is exceeding the RLD value, then what the node should do?
Uh, the pushing make the updated NAS, the size of the updated NAS exceeds the ILD. That is something because we add some new actions to the NAS, right? In this case.
Yeah, so what we should do? So your thing is that
What should this node do? Yeah.
we should address like what the node should do when it exceeds the RLD.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, probably it should be a local policy. Yeah, I'll let Tony. You can. Tony, you want to talk now? Or?
Hello?
Yeah, we could hear you now.
I really hate the way Meet Echo fails when you try to turn it on. It's not helping us. The best thing I can see to do if you run into this situation is to take and make a earlier copy of the NAS somewhere else earlier in the label stack, so that the new NAS is now well within RLD.
But isn't it that
you will have two separate NAS with the same scope, like hop by hop?
Well, remember, we may have done that at label imposition time anyway, right? We make copies of the NAS already so that we are always within RLD.
So I didn't quite get your last sentence about.
Okay, let's start over.
Yeah.
When we first put a NAS on a label stack, to respect RLD, we may have to put in multiple copies of the NAS. We've discussed this before. Do you understand that part?
Sorry, my network today is not very good, so maybe we can put it to the chat window.
I'll say it again.
Thank you.
We need to make multiple copies of the NAS. Okay? If we're imposing a new label or a new action and it's going to cause the NAS size to increase and push outside of the RLD, then we may need to keep making more copies of the NAS inside of the RLD. I'll add this to chat too. Bye.
Yeah, I understand you want to split the NAS into several small pieces, but that is not what we call replication in early discussions. Maybe that makes each NAS contains different actions. So maybe they will cause some of the nodes only can see a subset of the NAS, the actions. Okay,
I
maybe we can have
did
further
not say
discussion
split
on
the
the
NAS.
chat.
I'm sorry, I did not say split the NAS. I said copy. You would make an entire copy of the new NAS within RLD. And you might have to do this up and down the stack, depending on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, but what if the NAS itself is already exceeded the RLD after the new actions being added? Yeah.
If the NAS itself alone exceeds the RLD, then you're just broken.
Yeah.
Afraid you can't do the impossible.
But that could be possible if you have some nodes which limited RLD on the path. Maybe
if you have an RLD of 1, then you probably don't want to be using MNA.
Yeah, that is one special case, but maybe the text could say something about what if the NAS exceeds the RLD, what we should do, or what is our suggestion about the deployment. And that is possible. Okay, thank you.
Joe, you want to go ahead?
All I was going to say is, if you're trying to push on stuff that won't be understood by the guys who won't be received and visible to the guys who need to process it, the only answer we can give is don't do that. If you want to send proposed text to the list, well, anybody can send proposed text to the list about anything.
Hey, Tarek.
Hey, Jack, because you were on that slide of hop by hop modification for the NAS.
Yeah.
Do you
I just
mind going back,
showing.
please? Yeah. So you did describe this slide where you're modifying a node modifies the existing hop by hop NAS by adding actions, right?
It is
That the slide?
copying. It is copying the NAS and then adding its own.
There was another slide maybe that you described the modification of existing NAS,
Not modifying,
right?
copying the existing NAS.
So did you address the comment about a transit node trying to modify an existing NAS?
It's not a modifying of existing NAS. Actually, it's actually copying the existing NAS in this case.
Yeah, I understand the copying, but let's say a transit node wants to add an action, and the packet has a NAS. So there
There
were
is
multiple.
There is currently no description in here of modifying an existing NAS in a received stack. There's nothing
Oh,
we can do to stop an implementation from doing so as long as it meets all the constraints, but it tends to have lots of weird side effects and constraints. And so there is currently no text to describe doing that. And to capture all, because capturing all of the constraints you would have to meet and knowing that the scope was right and that the implications were correct, we can't stop a node from doing it. Nodes can do whatever they want, but there is currently no effort to describe that behavior in this text, in this document anywhere. If you believe it is important that we describe that, I personally think it's a bad idea. But if you think it should be done, even though you're chair, you're still allowed to send proposed text to the list.
okay. I will see what I can do on that. No problem. Thanks. I want
Tarek,
clarity on that.
yeah.
That issue came in the past, and I'm fine if we agree collectively that we don't want to address it for now. And specifically the hierarchical LSP model, one ingress enables a NAS, and there's another ingress down there. It's a hierarchical LSP, so that second ingress tries to add another action, and that's the thing I was thinking about. But the other one was the FRR. The FRR is an NFRR. Get confused about that, but setting that action by a transit node. So let's. I thought this should be captured, but we can talk more about it. Let me think if I need to send an email. Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Yeah. So so this is the next step. Actually, we want to talk about. The early allocation of M&A label for BSPL, and are we ready for working group last call?
Okay. I think for the early allocation, we will follow the policy, for early allocation, and I think it's a working group document, and maybe we should do a poll of implementation as undergoing implementations. But we will, there's a policy in the working group that we follow, so we'll try to do that. Working group last call. Are we sure we addressed all the comments that are outstanding, or maybe we should wait on this a little bit? And Loa can add more on this.
There is a process getting up to the working group last call, including a routing directorate review, and we haven't done that. So I would say we are on the way, but we're not there yet. So it's a couple of steps to take before we can start the work group last call.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Lowell.
Actually, what we need to consider, and I would like to have comments on that, are we, with what they have today and the updates we talked about in this meeting, would we be ready to ask for a routing directorate review on this document?
So here, yeah, go ahead. Correct.
It's very related to what Lo was asking, honestly. So I'm not going to change the context. So we have an open action item on the draft, and it's basically trying to track anything outstanding, any comments on this. And I would like to either, there were a couple of things to follow up on, including what I remember is the maximum segment depth with interaction with ELI and on the M&A substack size. Maybe we should follow up on that, and the text can either be left as is or be modified to be in line with what the behavior we do today with ELI. Other things, and there were some clarity needed. I believe someone asked. So, are you tracking anything? Do I need to update the open action item? That's what I'm asking. Or are we comfortable to close it, I guess?
We have this comment, we need to address. Joe said he will work with us to come up with some text.
Exactly. Correct. Yes.
And then
Okay.
here, actually, in this specific slide, right, we want to refer to 7.1 about the RLD as well. So the encapsulating node should take care of the MSD as well as the RLD before imposing the our M&A substack. So these are the two things.
The first one, Dad, sorry, I'm recording them. Can you repeat the context of the first one you described?
So this one actually, the group wants to reword this one, the conflict stuff.
Conflict.
Yeah. So Joel offered help to change this text, reword it. This is the first one. And the second one, actually, like in 9.1 section, the encapsulating node on top of the MSD, we need to add a sentence saying that it needs to be within the RLD, which we have described in 7.1 section.
Thank you. I recorded these too.
Anything else I missed? This is what actually I remember.
Maybe we should watch the email list as well, but I just tracking these two now.
Okay.
And back to Loa, I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
I actually took down my hand. I think I think I'm done. Thank you.
I think you were asking Loa about RTG being it ready for review.
What I heard when you were talking about this slide you have up there and the was 7.1, we want to update the text around that before they actually ask for a routing directorate review. The routing directorate review is not that far away, but we have at least two things we need to update.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess.
But actually, we could, and I'm not saying we're giving those two examples, but in general, we could leave open issues in the document, even if we do a route and directorate review, because we might get an extra chance to discuss it with someone that has not been that involved in developing the document. So it could be a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. If it shouldn't block. Yeah, I don't know
It
if
shouldn't
the
block
editor.
for a long time, but we might stop it just because we know things that we want to update.
Okay, would you like the editors of the draft to mark the sections to be edited, and then we can, or wait until we edit the final version?
I'm actually for waiting in this case. It shouldn't take that long time.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, Jack? I guess your next steps, you presented those.
Yes, these are the next steps, and then thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot for the update.
Yeah.
So if I go back to the agenda, I think that was the last item before any other business. It's the last chance for anyone to raise any concern they have. And if we don't have any, we can adjourn for today. Okay, I don't see anyone else in the queue except me and Loa. And with this,
I think we're fine.
yep, I think with this, thanks everyone who joined, and we'll see you next interim. Now watch out for the email updates. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.